you brought up a good point about the low operating cost. We have 4 cottages here on this property. Our water bill is probably in the $60 range, $80 range. You're talking maybe $20 per cottage. Our electric bill is about $60 to $80 per cottage. Okay,
well, listen to that. Listen to that. Yeah, I attest. Listen, the cabinetry here is phenomenal, man.
It's a good question. I don't know if I have a definitive answer, but we sell, like I said, we sell these homes all over, and I've always asked myself, like, why is somebody in California buying my tiny home? Like I said, we deliver these all over the world, essentially. So, I mean, the foundation, the chassis under them is very roadworthy, and we can deliver them anywhere. And then we do standard 2 before construction, like a residential home. However, these are all ANSI certified park models, so they all come with a certification label. And what that means is that we build to the standards of the ANSI 119.5.
All right, welcome my beautiful people. Today I'm super excited because we're going to be presenting first of all, beautiful project, but we're going to be talking to a short-term rental operator that not only is a innovator, but he's a visionary. And I firmly believe you're going to get a lot of value out of this video. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Doug. Doug, let us know who you are and what you're about.
Okay. Thank you. It's a good privilege to be on your podcast. I appreciate it a lot. My name's Doug Schrader, and I started building tiny homes about 10 years ago. And we've shipped them all over. We've got tiny homes in about 30 different states, including Hawaii. We've got some. Wow. We've shipped to New Zealand. We've shipped to Europe. So we've got a pretty wide reach. This resort, Highland Cottages, was just started about a year ago, or actually this year. But as far as being in, we started renting out this year. We started the project last year, so it's a pretty new project. Something we're pretty excited about.
Awesome, and we had the privilege of staying here last night. Explored the property, beautiful property. Love these cottages. We're going to dive deep into not only the manufacturing of the cottages, but his vision about this project. So let's begin there. What inspired you to create this beautiful resort here?
Well, I guess the brainchild would have started in Scotland, actually. Like I said, we've been building tiny homes for 10 years, and all of our tiny homes have been, whether they're the 8x20 is the smallest, all the way up to like a 10x40, they're a complete home. So they're made to live in. They have a bedroom space and a living space and a kitchen and the laundry, everything you need. And we were in Scotland in 2022. We were up in the Highlands doing a tour and came across this little tiny house resort, and they had a little bit different business model. It was like these cottages were, it was like a glass front cottage, and it was basically like a luxury hotel suite. So it didn't have the laundry and the full kitchen, and it was just set up like a hotel suite, real nice bed and the amenities around it. And so I kind of liked that concept. I said, I want to go home and create something like that is designed specifically for short-term rental, not to live in, not for full-time living. And so we came home and designed this Highland Cottage, and I've actually owned this property for a number of years. And I bought it like as an investment property a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago probably. And so I decided to go ahead and do a pilot project here, get these cottages up and going here, build a resort. And the vision is to actually expand on that and put these all over and build a hospitality brand, essentially, is what we're trying to do. But I wanted a pilot project here at home that I can help investors and people who are interested in getting into the Airbnb space with real numbers. Say, hey, this is what we're doing here. This is what the input costs are. This is what it costs to operate. So this project is kind of a spinoff of the whole tiny home lifestyle, but it's more of like the resort stay, short-term stay type of thing.
First of all, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the intro, this is why I say his vision and the innovation, right? Those of you that are in the short-term rental industry, you guys understand that today the industry is different than it was back, even before I started. And here's what I mean by that. Brian Chesky, the owner or the founder of Airbnb, and if you're not following the industry and you're an operator, you should, because here's where the movement is going, right? He just recently launched what's called Icons, and Icons is just it's a specifically places for short-term rentals, but it's not your typical 3-bedroom, 2-bath that, it can be a long-term, mid-term, or short-term. It is specifically designed for someone to come and have a unique experience. And he touched on it a little bit. So dive a little deeper into that. Like you mentioned, and for me, the purpose of this design was specifically for what?
Well, we designed this to be a couples retreat. In my research, and you obviously probably know this too, but in my research, the highest profitability in the Airbnb space is for a couples retreat, a 1-bedroom couples retreat. And if you look at the AirDNA studies I'm sure you're familiar with AirDNA.
Yeah, correct.
For this area, if you go to like we're in a lake, we're around Guntersville Lake, so there's lots of Airbnbs, lots of vacation rentals and things. If you just look in Airbnb and look at the AirDNA data, the nightly rate for that is not that great, but you drop it down to a 1-bedroom, you filter it down to a 1-bedroom, and the nightly rate actually goes up probably 40-50%. And in all the research I've done, if you can be specific about who you're targeting, which we are couples, you can pull that specific group in. They will pay more, and the profitability is a lot higher on that, and you have way less competition. So that's kind of the model here. Is like these cottages are small, so they're not only inexpensive compared to a lot of other properties, but the amount that you can make on them is much higher because you're creating an experience specifically for couples. So we have a lot of people here who come for anniversaries, birthdays, honeymoons even, or just to get away from life for a few days. So they want to come. They want a quiet, serene setting. They want the outdoor shower, the hot tub, the private deck, all this stuff, and it creates an experience for a couple. And that's what we're really trying to create here at Highland Cottages, is something specific that you can't get from just any Airbnb around.
Here's the Gold Nugget, people, especially if you guys are loyal subscribers. Here's the key component that he just talked about, and that I always talk about. Number one is, if you're in this business, understand who your avatar is. Fully understand who his avatar is, and that is a specific niche that makes it easier, especially when we're talking about targeting and marketing, because we're going to get into that in a little bit. But marketing today is the most important part of any business, right? I've always said this: without a customer, I don't care how phenomenal your product is, you don't have a business, right? And knowing your avatar, knowing who your specific customer is, makes it easier to get there. Now, you touched on a little bit about the ROI for this property, your return on investment on it. So can you touch a little bit more why this is so much cheaper to build, but the ROI is higher?
Yes. So like our normal tiny homes that we build are around 400 square feet, and they're a beautiful home. They are equipped for full-time living. Some of them even have 2- and 3-bedroom, lofts and things, so you can sleep even. You can a small family can live there. But this product, because of the size and because it doesn't have the full kitchen, it doesn't have the laundry, it doesn't have all the extras to it, it costs a lot less. For example, this cottage is $99,000, and in most markets, it'll generate about $50,000 per year. So when you look at the cost of the cottage, and you look at, you need to maybe figure, let's just say $120,000 for your delivery and your decks and your hot tubs and your setups. But when you look at a cost like that versus any other like our normal tiny homes are close to $200,000. They're in the $170,000 to $200,000 range. They're not going to generate any more income than this. So that's what's specific about this product, is because of the size and because of the way it's done. It's really simple. It only has one opening in the front. You see this big glass front door, which is very expensive, but it still keeps the overall cost down, and it makes the ROI so much higher on these than on any other tiny home that we build, or even maybe that you could buy, where the cost is in the $100,000 to $150,000 range, and you're targeting families. If you sleep 4 people, 5 people, your competition is exponentially larger than when you sleep 2 people. So that keeps the competition way down. There's nobody in the Southeast really doing exactly what I'm doing here. And that's what makes it special. And that's what makes the ROI so high.
Yeah, awesome. And here's, and you touched on this, on the fact of sleeping 2 people versus sleeping 6 people, right? And the ROI on that. There's another thing to keep in mind there, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves when I hear people on YouTube or quote unquote experts always mention, more beds, more heads, more money. That's not true. In fact, Doug just proved my point. So those that debate me all the time, and here's another person that understands what I'm talking about. It's more beds, more heads does not mean more money. Because remember, the bigger the property, the more your operating costs. And the people that say that, really, when they say that, I really think to myself, they're really not true business people, because a business is not just a specific product. It involves a lot of different things. And one of the things you have to keep in mind is operating costs, right? Mm-hmm. And maintaining this property versus maintaining a 4-bedroom, a 4-bath house is way different, right? Much more expensive. So I'm glad you touched on that, because that's really important. So, and in this particular resort here, and again, for those of you that have not followed me on Instagram and are subscriber to the YouTube channel or to the podcast, subscribe to the Instagram, because we're going to do a lot of videos on this specific resort. Because you really can't appreciate it. Number one, the videos are going to be great. But until you're here, you can't appreciate what this beautiful property is, the nature. It's just amazing. So I want you to touch on when you were designing this, what role did the environment play in the design in this particular resort?
Yes, and before I get to that, I want to bring up one thing I forgot to mention. You brought up a good point about the low operating cost. We have 4 cottages here on this property. Our water bill is probably in the $60 range, $80 range. You're talking maybe $20 per cottage. Our electric bill is about $60 to $80 per cottage. Okay,
Listen to that.
You've got a really, really low operating cost. Your utilities are just super low. But as far as the environment here in this property, are you asking about this property specifically or this region?
No, this resort. So okay. This Highland Cottages. The way you designed it, what role did the environment play?
Yeah, so I've had this property for about 4 years, and we started. It was kind of a rundown farm, I guess you could say. There was an old barn on the property, an old pond that was just mostly mud and stuff. So when we started laying this out, the key thing I wanted privacy. I wanted all of these cottages to have because they're kind of the glamping style with the glass front that opens up. I wanted them to have a good outward view, but at the same time, I wanted them to be secluded, because the whole point here is seclusion and privacy and intimacy for couples. So we had to lay it out with that in mind. The other thing that we wanted to factor, the other thing that's nice about these cottages, and I'll touch on this briefly, but they require 50 amps of power. So a 200 amp service, which is a normal home service, can service 4 cottages. 1 septic can service 4 cottages.
Wow.
So because they're considered a 1-bedroom, you can put a 4-bedroom septic system in. So that played a little bit of a role in where we placed them, so that they could, utilize a septic and they could and utilities. But if you have a property you're trying to develop, for the the infrastructure costs, the utilities and the septic and things like that, for what would be a traditional 2-3 bedroom home, you can put in up to 4 cottages on that. So that had a lot to do with how we placed it and laid it out, to give them all privacy, but yet to give them access to the utilities and really save cost on that.
Yeah, it's and again, follow me on Instagram, because you're going to see what I'm referring to. Like, for example, I'm not sure if in this video you can see behind me the tree. The deck is built around the tree, right? So you didn't actually need to even knock down or clear a lot of your surroundings, because of the size of the structure. Or speak on that. On that aspect.
So that's a good point. So all we did really with this property is we cleared out all the underbrush and the privet and the vines and stuff that was there. But when we placed the cottages, the beautiful thing about these is they come on wheels. They come on a chassis, so there's almost no foundation work. So you're not in here with excavators tearing up the ground. doing all of that. So all we did is we selected our spots and we cleared out the underbrush, and then we just kind of wove these things in here. And in some cases, like we were missing trees by inches on both sides, but we just kind of placed them in here. Very low impact. I mean, we did not disturb the ground underneath the cottage. Lays just like it did. The ground around it lays just like it did. So very, very low impact. And then we built our decks, and we just let the trees come right through all the decks. So we didn't want to disturb. We wanted it to just be as integrated into nature as we could possibly make it. And that's the beauty of these, is you're not getting in here with an excavator, digging, making footers, pouring a foundation. It's just simply you wheel it in. You do need to have footers. So what we did is we just poured piers,
Right.
just with an auger, and we poured a piers, and then we just wheeled it right over top of that and blocked up off of that. Very low impact. The ground still slopes underneath. Everything lays natural. So real low impact.
Yeah, phenomenal. Like I said, I love it. Before we get into running the actual business, let's dive a little deeper into the tiny home market. So, your company, Timbercraft, is really known for its high quality. But walk us through the manufacturing process. Like, how does that work?
Sure. So we start with the trailer foundation, and it comes on an I-beam frame. It's very, very strong. They are the frame. We've like I said, we've delivered these all over the world essentially. So I mean, the foundation, the chassis under them is very roadworthy, and we can deliver them anywhere. And then we do standard 2 before construction like a residential home. However, these are all ANSI certified park models, so they all come with a certification label. And what that means is that we build to the standards of the ANSI 119.5 park model certification. Standard 2 before construction. However, we go above and beyond that in that we strap every stud top and bottom. We bolt the plates down very good. We glue all of our sheeting on. We glue all of our decking on. We encapsulate it in closed cell spray foam, which is the hard foam, the rigid.
Yeah.
It adds a lot of strength, tremendous R value. And then the inside is completely done in shiplap, so there's no sheetrock in the home. The floors are hardwood. The bathroom is tile. There's no cheap finishes or anything like that. And then everything inside, all the cabinetry is custom built by our cabinet guy, which is one of the best in the industry. So everything is, dovetail drawers, soft close.
Yeah, I attest. Listen, the cabinetry here is phenomenal, man.
It's top notch, and I say that, I don't say that arrogantly because I'm not doing it. But our cabinet guy is tremendously really good. But so there's a lot of high end finishes that we're doing in these homes that just kind of set them apart from a standard, budget build tiny home.
And what's what would you say is like the biggest challenge building these and even selling these?
They really kind of sell themselves once people catch the concept. The building, the manufacturing part of it is pretty simple. We've been doing it, like I said, for 10 years. We have an assembly line that we run. So there was a time right after the pandemic where we had a real hard time getting certain supplies. That's kind of went away. So that's not really an issue. Really, to build them, they're very repeatable. They're very systematic. They're very easy to build. Really, what happens is, or when it comes to selling these things, is you have to sell people on the concept. Because one of the questions I get a lot when people see my product here, they say, "Well, I'd like to have that, but I want it to sleep 4 or 6 people."
Yeah.
And I say, "Okay, you're missing the point."
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. If you want that, that's fine. We have tiny homes all day long.
Right.
But this cottage specifically is not designed that way. So it's kind of like selling people on that business model, and then the ROI sells itself. Yeah.
And going back to the construction, because you do this in this area, I think you guys really hit a home run. Is balancing the aesthetics with the what's the word, like the efficiencies of it. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on that?
Well, I don't know. I'm glad you feel that way. I always welcome feedback and input on that, because we try to do that. That's what we're trying to accomplish, is get you everything you need, but nothing more than you need.
Yeah.
Kind of. So I spend a lot of time on the design. I think it's pretty well balanced as far as the size that's needed to get the experience. But as you go bigger, you get increased cost. And so we're trying to keep it small, keep it simple, keep it to where it runs on a 50 amp service and things like that. So it is very efficient. If you get up to like our larger park models that are 400 square feet that sleep 4 to 6 people, then you're going to 100 amp service. You're adding a multi-zone mini split. You're just adding a lot more things that increase the cost and operating cost as well. So we're trying to hit the balance here with this. We do have a couple of versions of this that we can offer. One is what we call a studio version. So it would be for like a home gym or something, and all it would have is the bathroom and the kitchenette area, but no built-in bed. So you could actually turn this into like a yoga studio or a home workout thing. And then we also have a slightly larger model that is about where you have like this black front with the cedar on the side. We have this same thing mirrored on the other side, and it's about 6 feet longer. And it has a small bunk room on the side for sleeping more if you're resort, so we do have other options to get. We also have one with a small kitchen on the side if that's the model you're going for. The reason we don't need that here is because we're targeting couples, first of all, and because we're very close to a lot of really nice restaurants downtown. I mean, we're just a few minutes away from the lake and from all of that. So if you're back in a really remote setting where the couple's not gonna be able to get out and go buy dinner very easily, we do have one with more of a fuller kitchen that we can do as well. So
one more thing before we move on and talk more about business, but because again, your innovation here for me is phenomenal, and some of the stuff that, like the building beds, the cabinets, and all that. Let me do this. In the industry, because I'm not too familiar with the full industry, what separates how you build them with other companies in terms of using technology
in the tiny home industry?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question. I don't know if I have a definitive answer, but we sell, like I said, we sell these homes all over, and I've always asked myself, like, why is somebody in California buying my tiny home when there's tiny home builders much closer, right?
Right.
Why is somebody in Maine or wherever? So the fact that they're buying our product says they like our product, and I think the short answer to that, there's some really good builders out there. There's not a lot, but there's a few really good other tiny home builders that I would say are good. There's a lot of that I would say do not build real good quality, but there are some good ones. But I think what really separates Timbercraft, in my mind, from most of the builders out there is the aesthetics of it and the design.
Yeah.
What we build, the designs that we build, the windows and the doors and the products that we use, not many people are doing. And so, like, for instance, a lot of the homes that would be comparable to ours would have like ribbed metal on the roof instead of the standing seam. Ours is standing seam. Standing seam means there's no visible fasteners that can leak or anything. Ours are all closed cell spray foamed. Ours have all like Geldwin windows and really nice fiberglass doors, where a lot of companies are using vinyl. It's a fine product. It's just that there are things that separate Timbercraft from a lot of those based on the finishes and the designs and the styles. But I think that's probably the biggest reason that they look at a Timbercraft and they say, we hear that a lot, like, I can tell it's a Timbercraft, So it has to do with kind of some of that. And the vertical siding is something that's kind of a Timbercraft specific thing. I mean, there's other companies doing it, but we kind of started the vertical siding, board and bat, and we started the clad windows. If you remember, our very first Timbercraft home that really went viral was our first Denali, and it had the red windows, it had the green siding and the beige trim, and it just popped. And we took that. What happened in the beginning with Timbercraft is we started in 2014. The first couple of years were pretty slow, and the industry was just getting started. There wasn't a marketplace for it really, and after a couple of years, it looked like I didn't know where it was going, But we designed the Denali model, and basically what I decided to do is I went to a lot of shows, talked to a lot of people, and I decided to design a tiny home that answered everybody's questions. Like, can I get a bathtub? Can I get a stand-up bedroom? Can I get, back in the early days, everybody had loft bedrooms and tiny showers and stuff. So I built the Denali, and I put the color scheme on it with the green and the red, and it really made it pop. And I mean, if you look at our web traffic and our sales, they just went like that. Yeah. Like so it was the appeal of the visuals and the design and the style. That's what I say is kind of, because there's a lot of other good builders out there, but when you really look at the detail that we put into them, it's kind of unmatched, I think. And I don't say that arrogantly, but I think it stands apart.
Yeah, I'm going to agree, because I've seen a lot. We visited a lot. By far is one of the best we've seen. So I applaud you for that. But you said something interesting, because I wanna deviate for a second and go into actually running the business. You mentioned that in the beginning, first couple of years, you were like, like let's expand on that. What like go deeper into that.
All right. So to start out with Timbercraft, funny story is I got this idea. You ever heard of Jay Schaefer?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jay Schaefer had a few books out in the beginning, right? So in 2014, I was looking for a life change, because I've been a general contractor, home builder all my life, and I was sick and tired of it. All right, I was just sick and tired of dealing with everything that goes along with general contracting. I wanted something different, and I picked up one of his books at Lowe's and looked through this book, and it's this tiny home thing, and so I was like, well, this is really interesting, because it kind of appeals, because there's two things I've been doing home design for 20 years. I bought a CAD program way back in my early 20s, and I started doing CAD design. So that's been kind of a part of my interest is home design, scale, size, proportion. All this stuff is really important to me. And so I've always liked small design, because I feel like when you go big, you can waste a lot of space. There's no penalty. When you go small, you have to be really good. You have to really, really be careful. So I got this. I got this book. I got inspired. I'm like, this is really cool. I started Googling it, tiny homes, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is like a trend, So I want to try this. So
and this was back when?
August of 2014.
Yeah.
I remember the day I told my wife. I said I'm going to do this, and I still was building big homes too. But I said I'm going to do this. So I ordered a trailer, and I built my first, it's called the Inez. It's on the website. It's an 8x20, really small, because that's back kind of when that was kind of the size. And I built it at my dad's shop, because I didn't have a place. And the funny thing was, he didn't have a garage door big enough to get the house out. So I figured all this ahead of time. So I backed the trailer in. I took all the running gear out from under the trailer, set the trailer flat on the ground, built the entire house to finish, drug it out, blocked it back up, cribbed it back up, and put the axles under it. It's funny. But anyway, because that's how I had to do to get it out.
I love that.
So anyway, that was my first tiny home. And I sold it, believe it or not, on Craigslist. Like, there was no tiny house marketplace. This is 2014, 2015. There was no marketplace. There was a lot of popularity, a lot of, it was a buzzword, tiny house, see it everywhere. But there wasn't really a network to support it. There was no marketplace, nothing. So I sold it on Craigslist. And by the time I got it done, I was like, I really want to do this. And so I started building the shop, putting the shop up, and I kept finishing out some of my bigger builds that I had going, my standard homes. And so I ended up selling the one on Craigslist. I got 2 orders off of that. And by the time I moved into my shop in the winter of 2015, I had 2 builds sold, and that was it, and a website built. And so I was just like, everybody thought I was crazy, man. I was just going for it, and so and I was by myself. I had not a single employee. Like, I did everything. And in about spring of 2015, or maybe somewhere in there, I hired, maybe early, like 2014, February of 2015 roughly, I hired my first employee, and just a helper. He wasn't really. And then in about summer of that year, I hired Justin, who is now my general manager over here at Timbercraft. And so he's been with me since the beginning, basically.
Awesome.
And then I hired my cabinet guy as well. So I hired some of my key guys up front. But yeah, in 2015, man, it was okay. 2016 was okay. By probably mid 2016, I told my wife, if it doesn't get better, I'm getting out before it's too late. Like, I'm just gonna give up on it, right? But in 2016 is when I designed that first Denali, and I took it to a show in the Tiny House Jamboree. That was big back in like 2015, 2016 in Colorado. Drove it all the way out there, and it went crazy. The funny thing was, though, is this was 2016, right? And so everybody's mind was still, centered on this tiny home. Like I'm talking 8x20, 8x24. So I come up with this, and when I called them, they had me, and I don't say this disparagingly, but they had me placed towards the front of the line. In the front of the show there. And I called them. I says, I talked to them a little bit about my tiny home and what size it was. It was an 8x37. And they kind of freaked out. They're like, that's not really a tiny home. I said, yeah, it's a tiny home. Right? I'm pulling it with my pickup truck. So they ended up moving me all the way to the back, which I don't know why that was, but I have because a lot of people there didn't. It's funny because in 2016 there was a lot of tiny home builders there that were like when I pulled up, they're like, "That's not a tiny home,"
Right,
because their mind
right,
was
yeah,
still centered around. But my concept is, if you're building an 8x20, 8x24, your market is so small. There's not many people can live like that. But if you actually build something that people can live in, then your market's huge. Like, if you build something that's livable, and so that's always been my concept with Timbercraft, is build something that I would live in, that you would live in, that's livable, not something that you have to be a hippie that lives out by the river in a van wants to live in, you know. So I got a lot of flack for it, unfortunately, but that's okay. But in the end, that turned out to be my winner.
Yes.
And it got me on the map. And so,
and here's why I wanted you to. This is why I wanted you to talk about it and dig deep into that. And it goes back to what I said in the intro. You're an innovator, right? And a disruptor in any industry is going to get hate. Yeah. It's going to get a lot of hate. But I firmly believe if you're not getting hate, that means you're not doing something right. Yeah. Because when you are disrupting something and have the ability, like you said, as a result of that, it's what took why your business took off. Mm-hmm. So again, the lesson there is, regardless of whether or not you're going against the grain, whether or not you have people telling you you're crazy, do it. I won't rehash my story in this podcast, but I was the same way. I bought a property that everyone told me, "You are crazy. You're nuts. What are you doing?" And you know, and in the beginning, you know, in the beginning, like halfway through it, probably the same thing happened to you when you started this business. Halfway through it, you were questioning. Yeah. Man, should I have done this? Yeah. You know, should I go back to doing what I was doing? And luckily, you hung on long enough to realize that you were right. And same with me. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was times I would sit at night because I couldn't sleep. My mind was always racing. Yeah. And I would sit and I was like, man, am I doing the right thing? Because that property it's not as big as this, but it was a disaster. Mm-hmm. But I had a vision for that property. Yeah. I knew what that property could. Once I finished, I needed to finish. Right. But then, you know, and I'm not I'm not a contractor. Like you had that leg up that you knew how to build stuff. I had to rely on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Had to rely on hiring. Had to, made a lot of mistake in that area. Fired a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But I kept persevering. I mean, I tell people all the time, I made zero money for 2 years of my business. Zero. Yeah. In fact, my first year, I lost thousands, if not almost 100,000 in my first year. Like, I lost. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and my wife's like, "You're gonna bankrupt us. Yeah. We're gonna file for bankruptcy." Yeah. Anyways, but I'm glad you hung on. Yeah. So now let's talk about running this beautiful place here. So how do you manage, or how do you balance running this and still running Timbercraft?
Well, that's a good question. My wife gives me a lot of help here. Okay. So that does help. And the thing that helps us on this too is we use a rental management software that kind of takes a lot of that out of it for us. So, but yeah, we have. Let
me stop you there because I want to dig deep into that, because there's a lot of people that follow my channel or either want to get into the short-term rental industry or starting out, and that's a big component. I consult a lot of new short-term rental operators, and the first thing I tell them is that you have to get a PMS system or property management system. Mm-hmm. So talk about your property management system.
The one that we're using? Yeah. We're using Guesty. Okay. It's similar to Hostfully, and there's a handful of them. But what those management softwares allow you to do is they and I have a good web developer as well. So she built me a really good website, and then the management software allows it to sync with. So we're on Airbnb, we're on Vrbo, we're on Booking.com, we're on Glamping Hub, and then my website. We're on 5 different websites, and that management software syncs all that together, sends out all the automatic messaging, syncs all the calendars, and just does all of that for me. So it really, when somebody comes in and rents the property, it handles everything. Unless there's a problem or they have a question or anything, then I'm readily available, and I do a lot of interacting with them as needed, So that takes care of a lot of that. And then as far as the goal here is that right now we have some cleaning ladies hired, and then my wife does some too, and so we kind of just and I do a lot of the lawn care and stuff. And it's like we're in the infant stage, so we're still hands on, right? But the goal is, and the money is there, once we get to where we're comfortable with it, we can hand off all of that and still make a good living hands off. And that's my goal. I don't want to be working here all my life mowing grass and everything. I don't want her being out here every week cleaning these homes. But for now, we're more than willing to do it. And if a couple, for instance, it's kind of a side note, but if a couple, for instance, wanted to do something like this would make a really good living for a couple. Just if he wanted to take care of the grounds and help her with it, she wanted to do the cleaning and they didn't want to hire anybody, you could be totally self-employed and make a good living. But I'm doing it kind of as an investment, and it's kind of the big picture is I want to do more of these, so I can't be hands-on on all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point you just made, in terms of either being, because I tell people all the time, you're either going to be an investor, right, or you're going to be an operator. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes you get people that think they're investors, but they're truly only operators, and they conflate the two. And then they're a lot of people are not going to want to cut grass and clean and do all that stuff. They just looked at the amount of money they can make and like, oh, I want to do that. Yeah. And then when they do it, they realize I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah. And they didn't put the systems and processes in place to be able to let go, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I'm glad you, from the very beginning, you started with a PMS system, and Guesty is a great PMS system. Although I've had, I've got on podcasts with people that there's always a debate which PMS system is better than the other, and my answer is always the best PMS system is the one you're going to use. Yeah. Right? Because you can have Guesty's has all the bells and whistles, but if you don't really spend time in learning it, then you're wasting your money on all the bells and whistles. And like I tell my story, when I got into the short-term rental industry, PMS systems didn't exist because I got in even before Airbnb existed. And so we were doing a lot of stuff by spreadsheets and Excel. That's how we ran our operations. And back in probably 2015, I think it was 15, maybe it had been 14, I wanted to automate. So I hired a company. It was very expensive, but I hired a company to design a PMS system for me. And then shortly thereafter, when that was done, here's an interesting side note. That company that designed that for me got bought up by Guesty.
Are they really?
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
they're worth it. There's an onboarding cost, that's going to cost you some money out of pocket. Right. But once that onboarding cost is, the monthly fee is so low, it's just completely worth it to me. And to me, that's why, like you touched on the part about investor versus operator. If I'm going to sell this business model to others, I have to sell it to people who are hands-off investors. Right. And so if it doesn't cash flow with you hiring somebody to do it, it's not really sellable, because not many people, not everybody, there's some, but not everybody's going to be a hands-on operator. Right. So that's part of the whole idea, is be able to learn myself how to automate it hands-off, and then when somebody else wants to get into it, I can show them how to do it, and you can make plenty of money without. And if you want to do hands-on, you make extra money, yeah, 30, 50,000 a year, whatever you're paying somebody else. And like you said, if you're a couple out there, and you're tired of what you're doing or don't like what you're doing, because that's the big one. I tell people all the time also, if you have a very good W-2 job, keep it. Yeah. And the reason I say keep it is because banks are more willing to lend you money as a W-2 employee than a self-employed person. And you can take that, go to the bank, leverage other people's money, and then invest that in something like this. Let other people run it, manage it. You're making your money. It builds equity, and you're still working at your job. Don't.
I hear, this is another pet peeve of mine, when I hear people, oh, I'm going to become a real estate investor. I read all these books. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to become a real estate investor. They buy 2 properties, they quit their job, and they think it's going to work out. I'm like, man, 2 properties, first of all, probably not going to pay all your bills.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing a lot of work, and you have to continue to expand and grow to do it. And again, a lot of people, after they're in the business, they realize, man, that's not really what I wanted to do. So I'm glad you touched that. So let's talk about so you mentioned currently right now you probably 50% of the time you guys are managing this. You do have some extra cleaners, but you do not have like a full-time employee specifically to this, right?
I do not.
You know, okay. So in terms of guest relations, you're using that PMS system to help run that guest relations. But if a guest comes here, especially one that is not from the area, and they're looking for like stuff to do you guys have like a guidebook that you provide to them, or do you guys give them suggestions? How do you?
Yeah, we do. We do that a lot, and we're also. I don't want to portray that we're hands off in guest relations, because we really do have a lot of interaction with them. It's just the system automates everything. But we have a lot of people, like just this last week, somebody was coming for a surprise. They surprised he surprised his wife for her birthday or something. They ordered flowers from a local flower shop. We went and got them, put them up here, set them up. We've had people that want, like, I want to, can you get me a wine and some beer on ice or whatever, and so flowers, whatever. So we do help make the experience nice for them. And yes, there's plenty of recommendations on our website of things to do in the area. And we also have a list that we give out to people as well for, like, there's a spa here that does, massages. There's great restaurants. There's walking trails. There's, a lot of things that people can do in town, antique shopping, coffee shops and everything. So yes, we like to see people visit the town and, get the whole experience. So we do have some brochures in the cottage with some of those things, but yes, we love to, communicate with them, help them with their experience. But
yeah, it's phenomenal. We have a glamping place in Colombia, and one of the first things, I still remember this to this day, and we had a couple from the Netherlands go, and they're like, hey, we love the place, but what do we do? What can we do here?
Yeah.
So that's when I quickly realized that people don't just come for the accommodations, they come for the experience.
Yeah.
And so we teamed up with some of the ranchers there, and we do horseback riding trails, or trips, and ATVs, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so in like running this type of cottage, tiny home resorts, etc., what do you see? What are some of the challenges to running something like this versus buying a single family home and Airbnb that?
I've never had that, so I'm not exactly sure. But the challenges that we face here with this property, I think, is when you have multiple homes on the same property and stuff, you're always going to have. It seems like there's always a lot more upkeep with multiple properties than there is with just one. Now I've got 4 water heaters. I've got 4 of everything in this property. So that, from that standpoint, I would say there's definitely more to keep up with. But as far as, since they're new and since they're well built, that really isn't that much of an issue here, I wouldn't say.
And I would argue that's really, I'm glad that's your challenge, because I talking to a person that manages and runs hundreds of short-term rentals all over the world. Yeah. That becomes very difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in the.
Yeah, we're pretty small compared to
that. Well, not just the fact, but they're here. So you can send one person, and that one person can handle all 4. Me, if I have especially in the summers where our ACs are going out.
Yeah.
And I have one in Miami go out, one in West Palm, and one in Broward.
Yeah.
I can't send one guy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I got to get 3 or 4 people
Yeah.
to go because the distance is so great. So
Well, that's the good thing about being in the business as well, because I have a full team over there.
Yeah.
I have my own electricians, my own plumbers, all my own people. So, and they all obviously live around here because we have our business here. So it's pretty easy to be pretty quick and responsive if there's any trouble. Get things taken care of, even if I'm not home, you know.
So, excuse me. So along those same lines. So let's say, for example, I have, a plot of lot. I have 5 acres or I have 10 acres, undeveloped. Walk me through that process.
Yeah, we are actually working on our goal, like I said, is to build a hospitality brand, and we have several different levels of that we're going to do. So one is, at the very least, we just sell you the cottage, you set it up, do what you want, and then we would vet you if your property and everything kind of matches the theme and the the style and the vibe that we're looking for. We would offer we would allow you to list your cottage, your resort on our website. So eventually, like my website now is just this resort, highlandcottages.com. But eventually I'd like to be able to go to highlandcottages.com and you could select Florida, or you could select Tennessee, you could select Alabama, and you could pick your resort, and there would be a continuity of design and style and all of that. So they kind of, because we're trying to build brand recognition and an experience that you can experience all these different places. So that would be you could buy it, set it up, we could kind of walk you through it. The second level is where we would sell you a package deal. We have package deals and we have pricing for all of that. So let's say you buy 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 cottages. The package deal would include the cottage, all the furnishings, a starter pack with all because we kind of know how many things you need to start, all that. It would come with a hot tub. It would come with a rate plan. We would do the research, do a rate plan. We would give you kind of like a pricing chart. We'd pay for your onboarding and get you onboarded with Guesty. We would pay for, we do like 1 year of advertising and promotion on our website. And we'd have a kind of a package program. So like you would have a little bit more value there. And then eventually, like I said, with Highland Cottages, you could go there and you could select a region or a state and be able to stay. And then the third level of it would be is, let's just say you're an investor, you have $500,000 or $1 million, or you have unlimited money, and you say, hey, I want a resort like this. We would actually do the acquisition and develop the whole property. But somewhere in between there, we have like different levels. We're really just trying to get the concept out there, sell people on the business model, and we'll work with you any way we can on that, because we have quite a few different options available for that.
So let me just recap that. So let's say, for example, in my scenario, hypothetically, I have 10 acres. I call you up and say, hey, Doug, I got 10 acres. How can we team up on this 10 acres? I have no idea, and don't know anything about construction, don't know anything about the short-term rental industry. So we would sit down, you do a consultation, and then you'll do an on-site visit.
I could, yeah. So some of that would be, depends, like I said, depends on what level you want to do it. But we would be more than happy to do on-site visits, right, and site, construction consultation throughout the project. Because yes, there's a lot to learn.
There's a lot.
And we do that even with our tiny homes the way it is now, because we sell tiny homes all over. People will call us and say, what do I need to do to put a tiny home on my property?
Right.
And we'll walk them through that. So that's not a problem. We don't charge for just basic consultation like that. But yes, if you want to do a site visit, we could help you lay out your property, decide how many you need, and some of that, we definitely would work with you on that. Absolutely.
Okay. In terms of the future, like, where do you see, what are the trends that you're seeing in relations to tiny homes, vacation rentals, and how are you adapting to those trends?
Well, I haven't been in it very long, obviously, but I do try to keep up with a lot of what's going on. And what I've noticed with the industry is, like we talked earlier, the experiences is what people are really buying. And so what I'm trying to do is even add more value in here and try to figure out what we can offer. We're not there yet, but we're thinking about it. Different things we can offer. Maybe even like For instance, we have a right down at the bottom of the, I don't know if you've been into the town or not, but so there's a walking trail along there, offering e-bike rentals. So you rent my cabin, hey, we'll furnish you some e-bikes, you can ride the trails, or try to put in more things like that, or put together tours with like a local brewery or winery or different things like that. So we haven't got that yet, but we're working towards maybe adding more things in, like just day trips or experiences that people can add to it. Maybe work with the spa down here that you get a couples massage along with your stay or whatever, kind of a package deal. So that's a little bit where we're trying to go with this project, because this is so specific to certain things. But other than that, I don't, that's really the only experience or the only thing I have is this space right here.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, because you have not been in the short-term rental industry for long, but you're, like I said, this is why I said in the beginning, you're a visionary, and your innovation is phenomenal, because this is where the trend's going. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Long gone are the days where you're going to put a simple home on Airbnb and you're going to make money. That's gone.
Yeah.
So it's got to be unique. Again, if you just follow what, you don't have to be a genius, right? I tell people, always ask me, Fernando, you've had a lot of luck in investing in real estate. What's your secret? I'm like, I don't have a secret.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
I go and see where Starbucks is building a Starbucks, and then I buy there, because Starbucks, what they did the homework for me.
Yeah.
If people don't know, Starbucks only buys properties in areas that they feel are and neighborhoods that they feel are going to appreciate in value quickly. So if I see Starbucks is building a house in this neighborhood, I'm buying, or store in this neighborhood, I'm buying a house in that neighborhood, because I know Starbucks is betting that neighborhood is going to go up in value, or that neighborhood is going to increase in value, and that's my secret. In the short-term rental game, I follow Airbnb. Airbnb does all the studies, all the and again, I'll mention it again. They're shifting in the last. So if you look at Airbnb in the last 2 years, and I'm because prior to that they did some other stuff. The last 2 years, they no longer focus on single-family homes. It's all unique. They have categories now in terms of cabins. It's everything's categorized now, and the reason they did that is because they understand that an experience is what people is looking for. So that's why they created icons. If you're not familiar with icons, I highly recommend you go on Airbnb and look to see what they're offering in terms of icon. So it's just a lot of unique, very unique, specific properties. One of it, I'll give you an example. One is a tiny house, which is, and I don't watch a lot of movies, but apparently there's a movie that was made, and it was with the house, and they had balloons and it flew, and I don't know if you're familiar with that movie.
Sure,
Well, anyways, that house, and with the balloons that went in the air, they created that house, and that's an Airbnb.
Oh yeah.
So you can stay there and actually go up in the air with the house. Yes. And it's the exact replica of what was the house in the movie. So anyways, again, this is unique. It's an experience, and it's something that I believe we're going to see a lot more in the future. So good for you on that. I think I have maybe one or two more questions, and it will be. Actually, I have one more question, and this is a question that I always like to close with, and that is, what advice would you give anyone that's looking to get into, specifically, I won't say short-term rentals because you're specifically in this type of industry, specifically in the cottage, tiny home, village type short-term rental game?
You talking about for like short-term rentals?
Short-term rentals, short-term rentals as a short-term rental operator, but looking to do something like this. What advice would you give that person right off the bat?
Well, I would definitely say to start with, do your research through AirDNA or one of those companies and kind of see because that's going to give you a little bit of a picture of what you can make in your area and what your competition is. And another thing that you can find out, just like for instance, when I did my research on it, I found out that a hot tub adds $40 per night on average. Okay, so you start to do your research for your area, you narrow it down a little bit, and then you look at this home has 20% occupancy, this one has 80. What does this home not, what does this home have? A lot of it, and another thing that's really important, I believe, and is hire professional photography. And even if you can, get models in your photos and do some of that, because that makes, if people can feel like they're in the space, they're living in the space, it's livable, it presents itself much better. So I would do the research really well, and then look at those key factors that are going to make a difference in your area. Sometimes I look at like when I did my research in this area, you'll see a home and it's only getting 20 to 30% occupancy, and you look at it and it's like, well, number one, the pictures are terrible. The decorations there's nothing here. I mean, this is like my grandma's 1970 rancher house, So you kind of see, and then you look at this one here. Well, what does it have that's presenting? So kind of do some research, and then add those benefit or those features in that people are willing to pay for, and provide them that experience. But I think it can be done almost anywhere. There may be parts of the country where it'd be more difficult, but I believe you need to be, this is my personal opinion, I think you need to be within maybe an hour and a half of a pretty good metropolitan area. And there's lots of places like that. So if you're within that area, you don't need to be on the water, you don't need to be on a bluff overlooking, you don't need anything but just a kind of a secluded acreage with access. So if you're going to do the Highland Cottage model, for instance, there is no built-in kitchen, like I said. So you don't want to be 30 minutes from town, really. So there's a few little key factors I would say for this business model that work really well, but it can be done anywhere nearly, I would say.
I'm going to agree. So the other thing that I always said, like, for example, when I started this business, I started in Fort Lauderdale, the South Florida area, and like a lot of people, I was under the impression that I needed to be close to the beach. I needed to have a pool. I needed to sleep 8+ people. Yeah. So those were my first investments. And then as I started learning and investing in other areas, when I really learned on how to invest in real estate, I wasn't buying in those areas anymore. And when I was looking at my bottom dollar, my net income per property, the ones that made me the most money were not on the beach, didn't have a pool. They did have a hot tub though. Didn't have a pool. They weren't big. In fact, a 2-2 or a 2-1 made me more money than 4 bedrooms or greater.
Yep.
So my mindset started shifting. And again, this is before our DNA existed, because now you have the data. Now you have no excuse, right? Because now you have places you can go and get all this information. You can do your research, check your data. But the point here is, like you said, you don't have to be in certain specific areas for it to work. I firmly believe it can work anywhere, and I've proved it could work anywhere. We have locations where we're not nowhere near a metropolitan area. It's 30 minutes into town, or even longer to get into town, but they do really, really well. But they do well because I have certain amenities that I know people want, and I know some of the experiences they want. Like I mentioned, the one in Colombia. This is in the middle of nowhere. Now it's in a beautiful area. It's called La Zona Cafetera in Colombia, where the majority of the coffee is produced. But there's no nightclubs. There's no fancy restaurants. In fact, there's very little restaurants. But people love going there. There are a few little local shops. In fact, the town near it's called Salento. Has become a big tourist spot because a lot of people started doing these glamping type little mini resorts, and now it's become extremely popular. Now it became like I want to say, if you look in the last 2 years in that specific area, that area used to be known for the coffee, but now it's a tourist area. Now people go there for the horseback riding. Anyways, I'm going to conclude that. Greatly appreciate you having you on the show today. Hope you guys got a lot of knowledge. Tell us where people can find you.
Timbercrafttinyhomes.com and highlandcottages.com. And BalticSaunas.com. We build saunas as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. So listen, people, I'm gonna put all his information in the description down below. Especially guys, I highly recommend if you're even interested in buying one of these or creating a place like this. Highly recommend come visit, come stay, so you can get a feel what it is. And I heard, I don't know if it's true. I don't want to put you on the spot. I heard that if a potential customer emails you, that if you have the time, you'll give them a tour of your factory.
Absolutely. And one more thing I'd like to bring there. If you come and visit us, you stay in my cottage and you decide to buy one, I'll refund your night. Or if you want to come and stay in it first to see if you like it, come buy a night, stay with us. If you like it, you buy from us, we'll refund your night. We'll give you a free night just to give you a no-risk opportunity to come try it out for yourself.
Yeah, people, hey, listen, take them up on it. You're not going to regret it. So, guys, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Follow me on Instagram. Buy me a coffee if you want to have a conversation. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.